Welcome back to the Real World Podcast. It is all change. Specifically, you're about to hear a voice that does not belong to Mike Thomas. We've had Jerome Cusson on before, but Mike was still here. But this is a Mike-free zone this time. It is myself and a very special guest who I'd go as far as to say he is the foremost expert on television that I know. His name is Ben Phillips. He and I used to work together. Ben, how are you this evening that we record this?
I'm good. How does it feel getting to record something at a regular time?
It's weird. It's very weird. Every now and then Mike will toss me like, hey, do you want to record in the middle of the afternoon my time? I was like, oh, sure, yeah, okay, yeah. Or like, I think we did a morning one once, so I was recording at like 3 p.m. But no, this is good. Social hours. Not like, good night everybody, I'm off to go do a podcast. So Ben is here. Ben watches a lot of television, which is appropriate because we're going to be talking about the Emmys. Let's address this right now. Ben, how many television shows did you watch last year that like broadcasted in 2016?
I think it was 85.
85.
Was where I finally got to.
Was the target 100?
87.
87 TV shows that aired for the first time, or like, you know, a new season of whatever, in 2016. And did you also find time to watch things that had been on in previous years?
Oh God, I did a catch up on Rectify last year, so I got to watch 3 seasons of that. So that was fun.
You also watch movies, have a full-time job, have a girlfriend, go out, and all of this.
I'm shocked. I mean, this year I'm falling behind. I'm only on 37 for this year so far.
Only on 37. Oh man, I don't know if I've seen 37 shows that aired in the last 3 years. No one knows how you do it. Every time it comes up, it is a subject of derision. But here we are. You know what you're talking about. So if you're listening to this and you are of the American variety and you're like, what are these two Brits going to talk about the Emmys for? Well, fuck you. We got Ben Phillips.
I have managed to put one British show in my nominations, so I'm happy about that.
So before we get to that, let's just, because, you know, you're new to this, so I like to catch people up on, like, give people a flavour of who they're dealing with. Then what is, gut reaction, your favourite TV show of all time?
Lost.
Favourite film of all time?
Scott Pilgrim. I love that film to pieces, even though it's definitely not the best film I've ever seen.
All right, there you go. That's who Ben is. Oh, and what's the best Iron Man movie?
3,
obviously. Okay, you're qualified to be on this show, Mike. Sorry, you're fired from your own podcast. So, we're going to be talking about the Emmys. The 69th Primetime Emmy Awards, September 17th. When we are recording this, I mean, you'll hear it like 2 weeks from now, but the nominations are out there, but obviously the Emmys haven't happened yet. So we don't get the wonderful thing of, like, you know, Ben making bold predictions and then looking silly. Except we kind of do, because several weeks ago, Ben sent to me his predictions. And you can believe them or not. It's, you know, why would he lie? We're going to go through what he predicted, go through what has been nominated, and then we're going to talk about if you had an Emmy ballot, what you would be going for. In the interest of this not being a 10-hour podcast, we are just going to be talking about outstanding comedy and outstanding drama. If it comes up, naturally, we will toss out who maybe deserves a nod for Best Actor, Best Actress, Best Director, etc. But we're not going to be sitting there breaking all those down. That being said, do you have your list in front of you?
I do.
Is there an actor or an actress in a show that is not on your list that you do feel does deserve an Emmy nomination, just real quick?
I think from any of the shows that...
Any show that isn't on your list. So they're definitely not going to come up organically.
I mean, I'm gonna say some of the stuff from Speechless. I think Minnie Driver was absolutely fantastic on Speechless, which is a ABC comedy about a family that kind of has to deal with the fact that their son has cerebral palsy. It's kind of Malcolm in the Middle, but with more of a kind of heart to it almost. But it was just a really fantastic kind of little debut season with a ton of really good actors, and yeah, like it's not something I had on my list, but if I expanded comedy out to about kind of 10-15 nominations, I probably would have tried to put Speechless in there somewhere. But I think that's the only show that's not going to come up organically that I can think of that I would mention a nomination from.
Interesting. All right, well, there you go. So, without further ado...
Mahershala Ali.
Oh, of course.
From the 2 episodes of Luke Cage that I've watched, he was just... so good.
It's very good.
In those 2 episodes.
That show stops being good when he stops appearing in it. Let's just say that. So much like the Oscar podcast, I'm just going to be upfront and say I haven't seen everything on here. I would say I've seen maybe a third of them overall, if that, and not all of it the most current season. So Ben is going to be doing most of the heavy lifting here while you just get to hear me host. So just for my sake, whenever we come to a show, I want you to give me like a one-sentence summary of what that show is about, which could be an interesting task in of itself, because some of these, it's hard to express in one sentence. But before we do that, let's just go through what your predictions were and then what actually got nominated. So, Outstanding Comedy. Ben's predictions made several weeks ago, remember, before all this got announced. Comedy: Atlanta, Blackish, Master of None, Silicon Valley, Transparent, Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, and Veep. And for drama, The Americans, Better Call Saul, The Crown, The Handmaid's Tale, Stranger Things, This Is Us, Westworld. So, before we say what you got right and what you got wrong, is there a particular logic that was guiding these picks? Several of these have been nominated many years in a row, if they existed for many years. So is there just, I don't know, do you feel you have a good grasp on sort of the trends of the industry and what you think is clear Emmy bait?
It's not so much trends of the industry, it's trends of the Emmys. It's basically, the Emmys have two modes, which is we like the new shiny thing and we like the thing that we've liked a lot in the past. And so basically, drama I went with, well, let's just throw all the new shiny things in there. Uh-huh. So that's why 5 of the nominees are brand new shows.
Yep.
And it's why comedy, everything in there but one show is something that had been nominated in the past.
This is true. So, here is the actual thing. Comedy. Atlanta, yes. Blackish, yes. Master of None, yes. You said Transparent, but it was actually Modern Family. Oh,
I did.
Silicon Valley, yes. Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, yes. Veep, yes. What made you think that Modern Family, which has been nominated every year that it's existed and won several times, what made you think it would finally lose its spot on this list, and what made you think Transparent would get ahead of it?
That was more of a blind hope. It was just I was kind of hoping that that Blackish had kind of taken the kind of network sitcom post and something else was going to rotate in place. But I probably didn't take into the fact that Transparent had a slightly weaker third season, and Modern Family is Modern Family, and it's probably going to take the show ending for it to actually leave the nominations.
It's ridiculous. I've seen a bit of Modern Family here and there, and yeah, it's a very funny show, but I just can't believe that literally every single year, and it's won, I don't know how many times it's won offhand.
It's four times, I think.
4, Jesus. And like you said, a lot of this, I notice, mostly for comedy, it's what have we previously liked, and for drama, it's shiny new things, because Atlanta, obviously, first season, so it couldn't have been nominated before, but this is the second year for Blackish, second year for Master of None, Modern Family, obviously, constantly, Silicon Valley, 4th year in a row, Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, 3rd, Veep, hot on the heels of Modern Family, since 2012, so it's 5th, I guess. So that's a lot of stagnation, I would say, in comedy.
It's actually kind of annoying, because that was my predicted nominees, and we'll get to what I actually wanted to see nominated in a bit. But I made a list of kind of about 20 shows when I was kind of coming up with my nominations, and I think maybe 3 or 4 of them are stuff that actually got nominated. The comedy field in TV right now is so insanely good and deep that the fact that there is this much stagnation in the category is kind of astounding.
Yeah. It's crazy, because I just don't know why you would go for the shiny new stuff in drama, and then I feel comedy shows, there's constantly some brand new multicam sitcom on, and sure, a lot of them get cancelled immediately and are terrible and no one watches, but with so much out there, and so many sort of hot new shows, I'm constantly hearing about, have you seen this? This is so funny. It's shocking that these are the ones that are still there. Seeing how many 3, 4, 5, 6s in a row there are there, that's kind of crazy to me. But I guess they like what they like, and props to Atlanta for breaking in there.
But even, Atlanta was kind of the new shiny thing on its own that was so big towards the end of the year. I don't think I went anywhere on Twitter or Facebook and didn't see someone kind of talking about Atlanta in kind of glowing terms, because it is such a uniquely interesting show and it does deserve all the props it's got. But yeah, like it was kind of the only comedy that kind of felt like it broke through to that significant a level last year, because everything else is kind of, a lot of comedies are kind of like they're slow boils, like they're not good in their first year, and then year 2, year 3 they start to show themselves. But if you haven't caught on in that first year, then you probably won't get a nomination at a later point.
The drama, similarly, you've got all but one. Better Call Saul, yes. The Crown, yes. Handmaid's Tale, yes. You said The Americans, but it was House of Cards again. Stranger Things, yes. This Is Us, yes. And Westworld, yes. I'm going to guess that with House of Cards it was a similar thing for Modern Family, where you were just hoping that it would not get there again, because that show again every year since it's existed. Pretty
much. I mean, The Americans was like, I was hoping that would be the holdover from the category last year. But even though I'm not up to date in The Americans, I think I've seen most of season 1, and that's one of my big TV regrets at the moment. But I've heard that the latest season was a bit of a down season, so I concede that. But then House of Cards hasn't had an up season, so...
Yeah, and notable by its absence, Game of Thrones on that list.
Yeah, because it's aired so late this year.
Yeah, that's crazy. Because winter has come, so they have to film later, so it's airing later, but... that thing mops up every year.
I mean, it's mopped up the last 2 years.
Okay.
Because obviously it won the drama Emmy 2 years ago, and then it won last year. So it's left this massive vacuum in the category, because it is finally come into its own. I think it only really started winning when Breaking Bad went off the air, and then they needed something to kind of fill that void, and Game of Thrones had become cultural phenomenon by that point. So it made the most sense for it to win.
What are you talking about? Breaking Bad's still there. Better Call Saul.
Better Call Saul is not the cultural phenomenon that Breaking Bad is.
It is not, and I can testify to that, as I was glued to Breaking Bad, and I still haven't actually watched Better Call Saul. I don't know why.
Better Call Saul is fantastic.
I don't know why. It's just part of me is like, as much as I love that show, I'm sort of done, and I know it's different, but just part of me is like, I don't need more. But I will.
No, that's fair enough. It's the rare, and we'll get into this a bit later. It's the rare show or the rare prequel that actually feels unique, and there is tension there. Like, I feel I'm watching for reasons other than I can't wait for them to get to the point of the original version, rather than I'm watching it because
I am happy that more original stuff or new stuff has made it in the drama category. Thank you, Game of Thrones, for airing late, I guess. But not lots of newish stuff on there, and stuff I've actually seen, so there's that. But you care not for Westworld, apparently, so that's out the window.
Westworld's fine. Westworld was...
I will get to the things that you didn't nominate after, but let's get into it. So, in a world where crazy people have decided that Ben Phillips in the United Kingdom, just a man, just a guy, deserves to have an official Emmy ballot, these are the things he would nominate. I'll read the whole list, and then we'll go through it. So for comedy, we'll start with that. Your nominations would be Atlanta, Better Things, Fleabag, Girls, The Good Place, Master of None, and Search Party. Now, you are going to be on your own for a lot of this, because Atlanta is the big thing I need to watch, because I adore Donald Glover, and I was highly anticipating that show, and just for whatever reason, just still have not. Girls, I've seen season 1. Master of None, I literally watched the first 2 episodes of season 1 2 hours ago. So, have fun. Atlanta. One sentence. What is Atlanta about?
God, Atlanta's not good. Music producer finds out his cousin is a famous rapper and decides to become his manager, and then just kind of weird experimental comedy vignettes happen. It's very, very much kind of centered in its location. It's very much Donald Glover's voice, and that's kind of what makes it so good, because it's TV comedy in the same vein as Louis, which is basically he's a creator who has a voice and a vision, and just will let him go loose, and he'll do things about whatever he wants to make things about, and it's a magical little show.
Yeah, that is actually a thing I heard ahead of it airing. The rumor was that it's basically going to be Black Louis, to use indelicate language. it is. I don't know if it's all written by him. I know his brother wrote some of it.
Yeah, Stephen Glover wrote a whole lot of it. Most of it's directed by Hiro Murai, who I think he's done quite a bit with kind of Childish Gambino music videos and stuff. And then Donald Glover directed a couple episodes as well, including Ban, which is a kind of the closest Atlanta got to the Chappelle Show. It's basically a sketch show, but it's absolutely phenomenal and one of the best episodes of TV from last year. But yeah, like the kind of Donald Glover, Harai Murai, and Stephen Glover kind of coming together create this just fantastic world that almost anything can happen. On my list of favourite shows of last year, it was my number 4.
Okay.
So it was probably my favourite in the category. If I'm going for like qualitatively what the best show in the category is, I do think Atlanta is probably my favourite of all of the shows.
That's a fair point. You haven't listed who you would pick as the overall winners. I suppose we could do that at the end of this as well. But
yeah.
So Atlanta. I guess you've just spoiled that by saying it would be your pick.
I have, but I mean we can
recreate that moment
later.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's Atlanta. I do desperately want to see it. I was bummed to hear that Donald doesn't rap at any point in the show. I was assuming
he sings as Justin Bieber.
Oh, well there you go then.
It's a very interesting episode in where spoilers for episode 5 of Atlanta, where they cast an African American as Justin Bieber, and Donald Glover does the singing voice for his songs, and it's exactly like it's that kind of weird.
Give it all the awards. They should all go to Simba / Lando Calrissian. Next, Better Things, which was not nominated, and you didn't think it would be. So, one sentence, what's Better Things about? And then, I guess, why do you love it? And why didn't you think it would get nominated versus why you did nominate it?
Better Things is Pamela Adlon's kind of take on Louis. But it's kind of taken from a angle of kind of motherhood and being a woman actor, kind of acting in Hollywood, kind of less experimental, but still very much in that kind of each episode will be multiple different stories or just one long story about a theme. And it's just a wonderful look at kind of single motherhood and kind of family relations, with some incredibly wonderful acting from some child actors and just a gorgeous little show. Louis is an executive producer on it. He directed, I think, the pilot episode and helped co-write some stuff. So the Louis DNA is deeply in there. I mean, Pamela Adlon helped write many episodes of Louis. So this is kind of, whilst Louis takes a break, Better Things has kind of taken over as FX's version of this. Pamela Adlon got a nomination for Best Actress in a Comedy Series. She is absolutely fantastic in this. Probably best known to people our age as the voice of Bobby King in King of the Hill, and,
of course,
and Spinelli from Recess.
Love it.
But yeah, it's basically a kind of feminist take on Louis, just a utterly fantastic, gorgeous little show that not enough people watched, but I just remember watching each individual episode and just kind of go this is just a lovely kind of short 20-minute story about something that I don't have any experience of, being not a woman and not a mother.
Shockingly enough, yeah. That sounds good. That sounds really good. Isn't Louis an EP on 3 shows that are on right now?
Yeah, last year he had Better Things. He helped co-create Baskets.
Yeah.
And then he had Horace and Pete, which was his streaming show, which he did a stage play a week with Steve Buscemi and Alan Alda and Edie Falco each week, and it was just where has this come from and why is it so fantastic? But yeah, I mean he's kind of quieted down a little bit now. I mean Baskets came back for him too, but I don't think he had too much involved in that. But
well, fair enough.
Louis was everywhere last year.
Yeah, well, Louis should be everywhere all the time. Fleabag. No concept of what the hell this show is, so one sentence, you're going to have to help me out here.
Okay, Fleabag is a BBC comedy about a 20-something, early 30-something girl in London dealing with jobs and her sex life and family relations, and it's one of the dirtiest but profoundly dark shows that I've ever seen in my entire life.
Wow.
it goes from 0 to 60 in the first episode. I don't think I've watched a show where the first joke is so inherently my sense of humour that I'm in for the entire run. But this show does it. It's like 2 minutes in, where is this kind of booty call scene going? And then it gets to where it's going. You just go, oh, that was a surprising punchline to this thing. And from there, it's just off to the races. Created, starring Phoebe Waller-Bridge, who is also in the new Han Solo movie.
Okay, there you go. This will all link.
She's playing a droid in that.
Oh.
So she's getting the Alan Tudyk role. But no, she is genuinely a revelation in this. Olivia Colman plays her stepmother.
Oh, okay.
And it is one of the best things I've seen her in. She's only in about 4 episodes, but I don't think I've ever hated someone as much for not doing that much in anything ever. But yeah, this is just a wonderful little comedy. It should all be sat on BBC or, for American listeners, on Amazon. It's only 6 episodes. It's just a wonderful, wonderful little piece that's surprisingly darker than you think it's going to be for a show where the first episode is kind of very much kind of focused on, is she going to get laid or not?
Strong premise. Okay, so next up on your list, controversial, some might say, Girls. This is a show that was enormously popular in its sort of first season or two when I was watching it, and then people sort of turned on it a bit. Like Lena Dunham has made a bit of a public enemy of herself in the last couple of years, I would say. There was a controversy about there being like nothing but white people in this show, but which
is true.
Yes, you have stuck with it. And from what you were telling me about this was the final season, right?
Yes.
From what you were telling me about, I think it was the very last episode you said is just Lena Dunham and Marnie, is it?
Pretty much, and Lena Dunham's mother.
Yeah, well, it sounded like they sort of stuck the landing after that sort of difficult middle chapter, as it were.
Yeah, I mean, I think season 4 was kind of a weak point, and then they announced that the show was ending in season 6, and kind of 5 and 6 were just this fantastic rallying for the show. I mean, season 5 has one of the best episodes the show ever did, which was basically Marnie and her ex-boyfriend going on a date around New York, which was enormous fun. But that was season 5. This is season 6, which just kind of made a point of kind of taking a step back and kind of showing that these people are growing up, and as you grow up, you kind of maybe don't stay friends with the people that you were friends with when you were early 20s. And like I think in the after the kind of end of the show, they kind of said like we only had about 5 scenes where all the girls were together in one room, and it was very much more of a thing about this fragmenting friendship, or these people who probably shouldn't have ever been friends. But it's hard to describe Girls again. It's basically Sex and the City, but updated for the kind of millennial age, so everyone's a little bit more awful than you expect them to be.
Yeah, I was going to say, we probably should still give the one-sentence pitches, not for the ones I have seen. The clue's in the title, it's about some girls. It's going to be a weird sentence because I'm not a woman, but the thing that I liked about Girls when I was up to date on it was it had a real sort of truth to it, or an authenticity in some ways, but that, again, I'm not a woman, so that's an invalid statement. But I always did like that about it, and what you're saying about the final season or 2 seasons, that sounds like they got back there, and because we all have those friends who you just drift apart, or like you said, some people just should never have been friends and just were because of circumstance. So that sounds good. Yeah,
it's a really good send off for the show, even if the kind of middle seasons are maybe a bit more difficult. I mean, and also shout out to episode 3, American Bitch, which is guest starring Matthew Rhys from The Americans as kind of a famous writer who has been accused of sexually harassing women, and kind of Lena Dunham's character goes there to do an interview with him, and it's basically just this 30-minute short story of kind of talking about whether or not you should dislike someone's art because of who they are in real life, and whether or not whether or not you should believe everything you say from people who are victims and stuff like that, and whether or not and it's a really interesting episode that It doesn't come down on either side, but it definitely makes a point by the end of it. But yeah, like again, it's pretty much a standalone episode. I don't think you would have to see anything of Girls to kind of enjoy that one episode, which is both a strength and a weakness, because Hannah feels a little different in the episode than she does in anything else, but it's still just a brilliant kind of 30 minutes of television.
Would you say they handle that better than the controversial newsroom episode, the rape episode that everyone like lost their minds over?
I mean, yes, because it kind of comes down the side of charismatic men can be dicks, which is far too true.
But one of these days, Mike and I are going to have to talk about the newsroom, and it's going to break my heart. Maybe it'll be me and you instead. You'll break my heart slightly more tenderly.
I'll break your heart.
Slightly more tenderly, though. Mike goes for the jugular. So, next up, The Good Place. Never heard of it. Give me what it's about in one sentence, and then why did you nominate it?
This is more of a fun one. So The Good Place is a show in which Kristen Bell's character, Eleanor, dies and ends up in what is called The Good Place, which is basically where people who have done good deeds in their lives go after they die, but it turns out that they got her name mixed up with another Eleanor who's gone to the bad place, and she has to learn how to be a good person in this afterlife. It's from Mike Schur, creator of Parks and Recreation, obviously worked on The Office, worked on Brooklyn Nine-Nine. It's only 13 episodes. Ted Danson plays an angel.
So just method acting then.
Who is in charge of The Good Place. It is one of the most carefully constructed 13-episode kind of comedy seasons I've ever seen. It's wickedly funny. Ted Danson is having the time of his life as this character. And it's just a hell of a lot of fun, and I don't want to say too much because I do think part of the fun is not knowing where it's going to go.
Yeah.
But if you liked Parks and Recreation, if you like Kristen Bell, if you like Ted Danson, you will find something to enjoy in the show. Adam Scott shows up late in the season as someone from The Bad Place, doing his maximum douchebag role, which we haven't really seen anywhere since Step Brothers.
I do prefer him that way to just impossibly nice.
And for the nerds among us, Drew Goddard directed the first episode. So,
ooh, wow, cool. And we do like to reward people who are clearly having the time of their lives in roles. So,
it's wonderful. I mean, it's nice seeing Ted Danson kind of bounce back after a few years on CSI there with Fargo season 2 and this now.
He was good in Fargo.
He was.
Master of None. Which I'm an expert on it now. I've seen 2 whole episodes of last season, so why don't you tell me about this season? And guess what is Master of None about?
Master of None, again, it's Aziz Ansari, kind of fresh off Parks and Recreation, basically doing a kind of Louis, where his own personal brand of comedy, but kind of doing episodes kind of focusing on different stuff as a kind of Asian American in New York. And so many episodes are kind of very kind of personal tales. So you've got episodes on the point of view from the parents in season 1. There's an episode which is basically the entire span of relationship told through kind of like every morning when they wake up. And it's just a wonderful kind of piece of short filmmaking back in season 1. Season 2's got some absolutely spectacular little short stories. There's one episode which is focusing on his best friend, played by Lena Waithe, where it's basically her coming out story over the course of about 10-15 years on Thanksgiving, and introducing her mother to her new girlfriend, and then the girlfriend the year after that, and stuff like that, and the trouble you have from introducing people like this. It's a show which is, again, it's lovely to see kind of comedies, rather than being kind of written by committee, punchline and kind of catchphrase kind of thing. It's basically going, this is a comedian, here is an idea that he has or she has, and we're just going to do a kind of 20-minute, 30-minute kind of short story based on whatever they want to do. So you've got episodes in season 2 which are basically everyone's experiences with Tinder, where Aziz Ansari's character goes on multiple dates through Tinder, and they're all cut together in like this ingenious way, and it's wonderful. Or the New York I Love You episode, which is 3 short stories about people in New York. So you get a story about people who work kind of downstairs in the lobby in a fancy apartment building, a deaf girl who works in an apartment or in a convenience store, and some New York cab drivers who have come over from Africa. And yeah, like they're just, it's nice to see a show which is willing to kind of put the spotlight on other people and tell their story but then also not lose kind of focus of what they want to do, which is at the center of it a kind of really lovely romantic comedy series as well.
Yeah, I don't want to go as far as to say that like Louis C.K. like invented this, but like I feel he has really opened a lot of doors for comedian like auteur-driven comedy shows now, and like Netflix as well, basically just giving comedians free rein to make what they want to make. Definitely
spurred on the kind of the current trend of it, because I think you can auteur-driven comedy, maybe not auteur-driven, but like kind of comedy-driven by personality has been around for like Seinfeld, Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Obviously, yeah, but those Curb actually probably is the one, and then Louis. But Seinfeld felt like, I mean, I know it had a lot. Never mind, let's not talk about fucking Seinfeld in 2017. I was shocked at how, again, I haven't seen like the truly out there episodes, but I was actually very shocked. The sort of production, the technical side of it, the risks they're taking from that standpoint on this show that is sort of giving Aziz Ansari, who, you know, everyone's familiar with him. I don't want to say he's one note, but like we all know his sort of stand-up, his sort of niche with the movies and TV he does normally, and to like go in this direction, I was very impressed with it. Like, he directs not all of it, or did he write and direct all of it? I don't know.
I think he's credited on almost every episode.
Yeah.
Along with Alan Yang, who's also from Parks and Recreation. He's directed a fair few episodes. Eric Warheim as well, who plays his best friend on the show, is also kind of a key director on the show. So it's very much kind of Aziz Ansari, Alan Yang's kind of baby. But again, they do get out of the way if someone else kind of has an idea, like with the Lena Waithe episode, which is, I think it's based on their friendship, and she's the co-writer on the episode, and they have a female director kind of come in to kind of do that story of a black woman kind of coming out to her parents and how difficult that can be.
Yeah, that's cool. I love that it exists, you know.
It's probably one of the best things that Netflix existing has done, is that Netflix has this bottomless pit of money to just kind of throw to shows, and you obviously get the stuff where they're trying to get the biggest ratings and the most kind of like subscribers, and then you get these little tiny things that maybe aren't as watched by as many people, but they've got the critical acclaim, and the people who watch them really love them. And Master of None is something you can definitely fall in love with very easily.
For sure. I'm hooked after literally 2 episodes as my pre-game research. So lastly on your list, Search Party. Again, this is one I know nothing about, so you're gonna have to one sentence me here.
Imagine Veronica Mars crossed with Girls.
Okay.
So it's a kind of murder mystery story, but told through the eyes of kind of annoying millennial people in New York.
Into it. Who's in it?
Alea Shawkat as Dory. Finally getting a lead role that she's deserved ever since she was on Arrested Development. It's a wonderful little kind of 10-episode murder mystery story that probably should have been a one and done, but it kind of it's been renewed for a second season. I'm intrigued to see where they go in the second season, because the final episode's got a monstrously good kind of like stinger. But it's very much like you can watch these 10 episodes and come away from going like, this was a really fulfilling story that they told. The entire cast is really, really good, but this is the star role that Alea Shawkat's needed for God so long.
I was stunned she didn't get more work out of Arrested Development. While I watched all the rest of them, like, I mean, they all deserve it, but I was like, where is she in all this?
Yeah, I mean, I think she's the only one who hasn't really. I mean, like, I loved her on her Broad City appearance. I think it was last year, where she played Alana's doppelganger, and so they just ended up having sex the entire episode because they looked identical, and it was a wonderfully bizarre little episode. But this is something where she's got actual depth and range, and it's a little darker. I think a lot of the shows I've got on this list, apart from Good Place, kind of have their dark side to them. But yeah, it's just a really nice little 10-episode story that I think for UK listeners is all streaming on Channel 4. They kind of put it up for Christmas, so they didn't air it on TV, they just all put it up on all 4. So
nice. I will definitely be seeking that out. So absent from your list, I mean, feel free to talk about any of them, but there's one in particular I'm very interested to know why you didn't put it on here. So you didn't nominate Blackish. Silicon Valley, Transparent, Veep, and the one I want to know about, because I know you are a huge fan of, Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt. So what did Kimmy Schmidt do to you after... you're one of the foremost champions of that show that I know of, unless I've just fundamentally misunderstood all our interactions.
No, I love Kimmy Schmidt. I haven't seen enough of season 3. Well, it's not on here, but from what I've seen, I think I've seen about 4 or 5 episodes. It felt a little bit less vital than kind of the previous seasons. It's still that kind of rapid fire joke machine that you can rely on Tina Fey to kind of pull out there. But I don't know, when I stack it up against kind of the feelings that some of these other shows kind of made me have, Good Place was kind of the only one which was kind of pure joy, but the other 6 shows all made me feel something other than kind of comedy, and I think that's kind of where I'm going now. I think it's a lot of the comedy shows nowadays are kind of 20 to 30 minute long drama episodes with some occasionally very funny moments, and I think that's just where my head is, or it was when I was kind of putting together what my nominations were. But I think Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt would have definitely been there for its first season, probably would have been there for its second season. And again, I don't want to stagnate a category when I can honour a lot of kind of very good first season shows.
Well, that's fair enough. That was the one that when I saw your list, I was like, that seems odd to me. I thought he really loved that show, but that is.
I mean, if of the shows that I didn't nominate, I think Blackish might have been the one that would have made it. Probably the one that would have been on there the most.
Okay.
Which is weird because Blackish had one of the best episodes that aired in the last year with Lemons, which was that kind of take on the post-election feeling of everyone in America with Donald Trump winning and all the rest of it. But then they also had some really bad kind of network comedy product placement episodes. There's one episode where they have to do an advert for a Surface, and it's just 20 minutes of kind of talking about how great the Surface is, and it's just this is what happens when you have to make 24 episodes of television in a year. Is sometimes you have to do this. But when Blackish is good, Blackish is very, very good. So yeah, I mean, again, Blackish is one that definitely deserves to be on there. I think it's the best of ABC's sitcoms at the moment, apart from maybe Speechless. But ABC is doing fantastic work with family sitcoms, with pretty much everything other than Modern Family.
You're a big fan of Carmichael Show as well, aren't you? I didn't see that.
I am. Carmichael Show is. I think that was either Carmichael Show didn't air in time to be eligible. I can't remember when the season 2 aired, or it was a last minute cut from my list. Okay. But I get the feeling season 2 aired in time for last year's nominations, and then season 3 didn't come back in time. Yeah. Season 2 aired from March to May last year, and then it came back on May 31st this year, so it wasn't eligible for this year's Emmys.
Okay. Well, Gerard Carmichael is a very, very funny man, so I still need to watch this show that is now over. Yeah, season 3 will be the end. There's about 5 episodes left, I think. Wow. Anyway, let's move on. Let's move on to dramas now. And again, I will run down your picks, and then we'll go through them one at a time. So, Better Call Saul, no surprise to me whatsoever. Handmaid's Tale, The Leftovers, that's going to be a discussion. Legion, Orange is the New Black, Rectify, and Stranger Things. I am shocked you included that, because you were one of the more down on it people I knew, but we will get to that in 6 TV shows' time. So let's go with Better Call Saul to start us off. Like I said, I watched all of Breaking Bad religiously. In theory, I was all in for Better Call Saul. I just can't quite bring myself to do it. Odenkirk is fucking fantastic, but I'm still not there yet. So, in one sentence, what is Better Call Saul about, and why did you pick it?
Better Call Saul is basically a prequel to Breaking Bad. It's similar in structure to Breaking Bad in that it's about a good person becoming bad, but the difference becomes you kind of don't want this person to kind of go through the kind of journey. Like Breaking Bad has that kind of inherent horror where you realise, oh no, this is a terrible thing that the audience is made implicit in rooting for. Yep. Whereas Better Call Saul's kind of got that thing where it's just like, no, we love this nice guy who's trying to do right by the world, gets slowly corrupted by just outside forces, and ultimately I don't want him to become the villainous version that he is. I much prefer the nice guy version that he is still just about currently in the show's timeline. But you can tell that there's a fall coming imminently, and it's going to break my heart.
Yeah, I felt really like uncomfortable towards the end of Breaking Bad because I was like, I hate Walter White. And I've been wanting him to get here, and now he's here. I'm like, I don't like you. Like, leave Jesse alone.
Yeah, I mean that was a big issue with the show in terms of the audience hating Skylar, who was just inherently a good person trying to do right by her family. Yep. And it's just like, the only reason you hate her is because she's getting in the way of the protagonist, who is an awful person. The show is called Breaking Bad. You are rooting for the villain to... Yeah. Breaking Bad fans can be pretty poisonous. But yeah, Better Call Saul is just a fantastic version of what a prequel should be, in that it creates its own internal stakes that make watching the show on its own worth it. There are relationships in this show that have to be broken before you get to where Jimmy and Beale is in Breaking Bad's timeline, and to watch them break is going to hurt me deeply.
Yeah.
And that's the best thing I can say about it, is I'm invested in the character relations. Rhea Seehorn as kind of Jimmy's on-again, off-again girlfriend called Kim is so damn good, and she deserved an Emmy nomination. She didn't get one. And she's kind of the heart and soul of the show, and the kind of show will take breaks to kind of focus on her for a little bit, and she does it so well. And because she's not around in Breaking Bad time, you know something is going to happen with this relationship that is going to just be awful.
Yeah.
The other thing that I'm going to say is basically this year they nominated Jonathan Banks, who played Mike on both Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, Best Supporting Actor. And he is fantastic as always, but he did not deserve an Emmy nomination this year. It should have been Michael McKean as Jimmy's brother, who had an utterly fantastic kind of arc this year, including one of the best episodes, monologues that you'll see on TV this year in an episode. And it's just the fact that the Emmys kind of went to this is the person we know from Breaking Bad, let's nominate him because he always does good work, is emblematic of the Emmys being so close to getting it right and then just fucking up at the last second.
Wow, that's this sort of thing for you. So, Handmaid's Tale. This is a show that I hear a lot of people talking about out of nowhere, and I think it's currently still in its production, airing season in this country. I guess it was all on Hulu.
It's all on Hulu now because Hulu kind of aired. They put the first 3 episodes out, and then they edit weekly after that. And this was kind of Hulu's first, well, it's not their first, but it's their kind of first big breakthrough show. And it's kind of broken through in a way that Amazon only dreams of breaking through.
Yeah, tell me about it. Now, I dipped in on about 15 minutes of, I don't even know what episode, I guess the most recent one that aired in the UK. If you're listening to this, that would have been 2 weeks ago or 3 or something. So I'm going to take a stab at what this show is about in one sentence, and you tell me how I do. So in the undetermined near future in America, some sort of nuclear event has rendered a lot of people infertile, and now women are forced breeding machines, and they are assigned to a man, and they can't really go out that much in public. And some of the women are now sex slaves in weird clubs, and her husband's maybe in Canada, and I don't know.
Close.
Okay.
It's not. It's kind of more environmental pollution as opposed to kind of a nuclear holocaust type event that's caused infertility. It's based on the novel from Margaret Atwood, which was written in kind of post Reagan Thatcher era, or during.
Okay.
So lots of political stuff that worked there, and then obviously putting it out nowadays, it's kind of hit home again because we're in a kind of another political era where anything to do with kind of women's reproductive rights and men kind of trying to take control over stuff is a kind of a hot button issue. So this is hitting home for an awful lot of people.
It looked
which is
very depressing.
One of the biggest reasons why it's super depressing. Yeah. It's super depressing. I've spoken to girls who watch this, and they basically I can't do more than 1 episode at a time, or I need to take breaks because I can see the kind of steps it would take for society to get to this level, and it's depressingly more close than you'd like to think it is.
Cautionary tale.
Yeah, and then we have to talk about Elizabeth Moss when you're talking about this show. She is giving potentially a career best performance, and considering that is post Mad Men, post Top of the Lake, this is superb work from her.
Mm.
And if she doesn't win the Emmy for Best Actress, then I have no idea what the people who are voting for this kind of stuff have been watching, because it's genuinely just fantastic work and one of the best performances I've seen in anything ever.
Wow.
It's there's so much depth, and like you hear production talk where she's got a lot of voiceover, and when she is acting scenes where the voiceover is supposed to be over it, she is apparently running the voiceover through in her head, so she knows when to make facial reactions that will work with the voiceover later on, as opposed to normally when you just kind of narrate over what you've acted previously. And it's just this insane level of detail she's putting into this performance. But I mean, the whole cast is fantastic. Yvonne Strahovski, Alexis Bledel, and Dowd, Samira Wiley.
I saw Poussey is in there. I was like, oh, cool. She's getting work still. Good.
We'll talk about her later.
Of course we will. Right. Oh god. Okay. Ben really likes The Leftovers. He really, really, really likes The Leftovers. Most of my life since meeting him has been, why aren't you watching The Leftovers yet? And, hey Matt, you should start watching The Leftovers. So, I guess this is your ultimate revenge, because I have now invited you to have free forum on The Leftovers. So for the next 45 minutes, everyone just, settle in, and let's have Ben tell us why he loves it. But first, what's it about?
The Leftovers is a show set in a world in which 2% of the world's population vanished for no discernible reason. And it kind of takes place about 3 years after this event occurred. Some people lost more people than others, some people didn't lose anyone, and it's kind of not so much about that. Like, you don't focus on any characters who are researching where they went. You don't focus on characters who are trying to figure out what this all means. Instead, you focus on people just trying to live a life in which this awful, horrible thing happened, and you're just trying to process the kind of lack of knowledge and depression and just kind of existential ennui that would exist in this world.
Like how The Walking Dead, they never actually try and address where all these zombies came from or anything. They're just trying to stay alive, right?
I hate that you've compared The Leftovers to Walking Dead.
Everyone who watches this show that I know raves about it. I feel it's like the best show that people aren't watching or something. I hear it tackles grief in ways that are like staggering.
Yeah, it's the show that's made me feel the most potentially ever. Like, it has a music cue that if it plays, it's like a Pavlovian effect where you just start crying and you don't know why. It hasn't got to the point where the emotional stuff's happened, but because that music's playing, you're already welling up.
Is it the equivalent of when you just sometimes text me, I am a leaf on the wind?
Yes, okay. It is that.
Okay.
But yeah, The Leftovers is... I cannot describe to you my love for The Leftovers.
Oh, cool, so let's move on. No.
It is a show which deserved to be nominated to the Emmys. I get why it wasn't nominated for Emmys. It got one nomination this year, which was Ann Dowd for Guest Actress. She's going for a twofer because she's also nominated for Best Supporting Actress for Handmaid's Tale. Yeah, but it's just so, like, Carrie Coon is giving one of the best performances on television ever. Some of the directors on this show are doing fantastic work. And pretty much any script from season 3 could have been nominated for a writing Emmy. Justin Theroux is doing something I never thought he could do in terms of his performance. The music supervisor on this show is utterly fantastic, and one of my most annoying discoveries was that Stranger Things got nominated for music kind of selection over her. And can you name me more than one song that was used in season 1 of Stranger Things that wasn't the score produced for the show?
So you're saying something other than Africa?
Yes.
Not offhand, no, I can't.
Right, so Stranger Things kind of got carried along to all these music nominations.
Hell of a score,
because the score's fantastic, but it did not have good music supervision in the same way that The Leftovers did, where they found these just fantastic little folk songs and stuff you've never heard of, and Wu-Tang Clan to go over a scene where people are jumping on a trampoline.
Ooh, which Wu-Tang song?
Well, what song would you have for someone jumping over someone jumping on a trampoline?
Gravel Pit.
It wasn't Gravel Pit.
Was it Protect Your Neck?
It was Protect Your Neck, but from the W.
Okay.
Yeah, The Leftovers is, I don't want to spoil anything for the show if you haven't watched it. It's a show that is best experienced. I could give you a list of things that happened in season 3. There's a lion sex boat orgy. which is as weird as it sounds. There's a scene in which a naked Frenchman blows up a nuclear bomb to destroy an egg.
What?
Yeah.
What? I thought this was a quiet little show with creepy
No,
films.
I'll send you the link to the scene after this. It's a joyous scene. There's a scene in which a group of people blow up the world using nuclear weapons.
But the world, that's where the characters live, right?
Yeah, it is. And it happens in the penultimate episode of the series.
What? You're just making it up. I don't think Leftovers is even a real show anymore.
Cut a lot of the spoiler stuff or just bleep stuff out. I'd rather have you reacting to...
If I just scrolled up through our text message history over the last year or so, I probably know everything that happens in it, but I've committed none of it because none of it has any contextual sense, so it hasn't gone into my memory. So
I was talking to a friend the other day, and I was describing to him something that happened in one of the episodes from season 3, and I was just like, I'm fairly sure this is a different show to the one that you told me about to watch, and I was like, yeah, I can assure you it's not.
Yeah. If you are a regular listener or reader of The Real World, which you should be, entertherealworld.com, that's 2 E's, real, then you would know that Matt Waters heavily favours things with good soundtracks. So hearing that is good times for Matt. And I promise you, and we've got audio witnesses now, assuming anyone's listening, which is not a guarantee, I will watch The Leftovers, Ben, and we will talk about it.
Isn't there going to be a mini-series of you guys watching The Leftovers at some point in the distant future?
It was discussed, but many things have been discussed, and I'm not sure how many of them are happening. We might have a 2-year roadmap that does not include The Leftovers right now.
Oh my God.
Mike and I will discuss it, I'm sure.
Do I get to find out what next week's episode is at the end of this one?
Yes, yeah, sure. But first, let's talk about Legion, which I am actually incredibly qualified to talk about because I already did. I can do this, but I feel you're good at these. So one sentence, what's Legion about?
Legion's probably the most difficult one of all of these to describe in a sentence. Based on X-Men, focusing on a guy who may or may not have multiple personalities, may or may not have mutant powers, and kind of going on a journey through his head.
Yeah. Well done. That's pretty concise. It's kind of... I love that it's basically just a show that happens to have a guy with powers on it. Because, all of the buzz around it was, it's an X-Men TV show and everything. But it's really not. There are a couple of nods here and there, and then some stuff becomes very explicitly X-Men-y. But you could watch this not giving a fuck about comic books, not having seen an X-Men film, really, and you'd get everything out of it. It's Noah Hawley, aka the Fargo man. It's just a really good drama series that happens to be about a guy that can do anything, basically. I'm a huge fan of Legion, and if you want my extended thoughts on it, go a few weeks back and listen to me and Mike Thomas talk about it. But it's not about me, it's about you, Ben Phillips. So why don't you tell me why you would have nominated this for Outstanding Drama Series?
I would have nominated... It's one of those things where, again, I watched very little drama. There's probably... Legion was just a show that kind of captured my imagination. And that first episode, which is just so insane and so wonderful looking from a director's standpoint. And then it also kind of kept on managing to nail kind of character moments and kind of just a nicely, pervasively creepy tone over the course of its 8 episodes. It's the closest thing we've got to a kind of superhero horror story in this era of kind of post-Iron Man world, which is something that is sorely lacking, and there's some genuinely terrifying moments in the
creepy show
in the first season. Yeah.
Creepy show. Don't worry, Tom Hardy and Venom are gonna come and solve all that with their horror film. Legion's fantastic. The Bolero scene is staggering. The Aubrey Plaza dance scene is not as staggering, but still very good. The chalkboard scene is insane. The opener to the final episode is insane. Every second Jermaine Clement is on the screen is amazing. Legion's pretty good, guys. I'd probably pick it for my favourite show.
It's just a lot of fun. It's similar to... It's probably not going to be something I would put in the canon of television, but in terms of being visually inventive and being just fun, this is about as good as you can get.
And it is at times quite a difficult show. They do not spoon feed you at all, but I love it. I love watching all the like breakdowns of it and stuff, and all the like Easter eggs. But that's a lot of time on Legion, largely because I'm actually able to talk about it. So let's move on to another show I can talk about because I actually watched it. Orange is the New Black. Everyone loves Orange, pretty much, that I've ever encountered. And I caught some heat for saying that I didn't like last season as much as some of the previous ones, but we'll get into that right now. So what is Orange is the New Black, Ben, for the people who are under a rock?
It is about a woman named Piper Chapman who gets sent to prison for, I think it's 18 months, for kind of drug offences. And then it kind of becomes this massive quilt of kind of time in a women's prison, focusing on people of all different races, genders, or not genders, but kind of different races, different social classes, and putting them together in this hodgepodge world in which they've only got each other.
It's barely about Piper anymore, and like that's the thing. Like in the last sort of couple of seasons, I've been like, you know what, fuck Piper. Like she's not a good person. Like I want to watch this show that's about Pusey and all these other people, but
it's a similar thing that kind of The Wire had, where you introduce a character who is, for all intents and purposes, supposed to be your entry point to this world, which was in The Wire's case Jimmy McNulty, and in here it's Piper Chapman. But then you kind of start to go away from them because they're maybe not the most interesting part of this world, and they were a good entry point to it, but there are more interesting and more important stories to tell than the kind of slightly upper middle class girl who got involved in a lesbian relationship because it was just a thing to do at college, and kind of get into kind of racial politics and class politics and all these kind of other things. And the show is very good at doing a lot of these things. Yeah. I really liked how last season started. I really liked the enormous new security guard with the beard. I'm bad with names of shows if I'm not actively watching them. Piscatello is the name of the big security guard.
Piscatello, there you go.
Piscatello.
I thought was great. I liked how it started. I liked the very end, but sort of the portions in the middle I just didn't care for as much as I liked previous seasons. It's been so long, though, since I've seen it that I can't really stand behind that opinion as much, but...
I mean, I think this is the longest ago airing show that I've got on my list of things that should have been nominated. And all I can say about this season is I thought it was one of the most tightly structured seasons of television that I've seen. Just the slow ramp up in kind of tension and in terms of just stuff happening was so well done. Like the early stuff all paid off by the end, and just this slow boil of kind of tensions within there, and just so many moments where I'm just like, oh god, this is going to break my heart. Like when you finally find out why Suzanne was put into prison. Like all the stuff with Lolly kind of towards the end with like, and her mental health issues, and then obviously Pusey in that kind of penultimate episode is one of the kind of so heartbreaking. And yes, there are issues that people have raised with kind of taking the Black Lives Matter kind of rhetoric and kind of movement and turning it into where you sympathise with the murderer, and you also have one of the people being involved in the murder also be of colour. These are issues that have been raised, and whilst I can see them, I still think that they work better on a dramatic level. That's how it played out.
Yeah.
I think on a political level, it's probably the show did a disservice to the Black Lives Matter movement, but I do think that if it had been any character other than the one that ended up being involved in that scene, I do think it would have come off as kind of cartoonishly evil and kind of been something the show could have never recovered from, because then you get to a point where the show has to go to a darker and kind of more committedly evil place than it probably wants to go to.
It's not like that Kylie fucking Jenner or whichever Kardashian it was. Also, I miss Ruby Rose, you know? Like,
it was so nice to see her for one episode.
Yeah.
The fact that this show wasn't nominated is a travesty. I think it's one of the most relevant shows on TV, and I can see why it airing so early on in the year, and each time it feels like it should be nominated, it's kind of going up against a maybe less good season in terms of what's on TV right now. So it's all a bit weird with Orange is the New Black, but it's one of the best shows on TV and something that I will always think of this kind of era as being one of the defining shows.
Definitely. That's what it's I don't know if it's the Netflix show, but it's certainly in the elite.
I mean, House of Cards is probably the Netflix show, sadly.
Yeah. Let's talk about Rectify. I'm afraid you're on your own again after that wonderful streak we put together of 2 things I'd seen back to back. What's Rectify about?
Rectify is the story of a young man who was sentenced to prison at the age of 18 for the murder of a girl, and then after 20 years after he's kind of put on death row, new evidence comes out that exonerates him, and it's kind of all about his reintroduction to society, how all the people's hometown kind of already think he did it, and kind of dealing with that level of hatred from a town where you grew up, and kind of how it can break a family who's had to exist for 20 years thinking that their son was a murderer and then maybe now he's not. So this season that just aired, I've nominated here, was the final season. It's a show that literally only ran 4 seasons, about 30 episodes long. It is a very slow show, but it's utterly gorgeous. Aidan Young is giving a utterly superb performance. It's a show that's much more, again, about emotions than about actual things happening. A lot of the time he's just kind of staring at stuff, because when you spend 20 years on death row in a small, tiny room, the outside world is kind of an alien concept to you, and human interaction is an alien concept to you. It's a deeply spiritual show, it's a deeply religious show, but it's not religious in that kind of hitting you over the head kind of way of saying you should be religious too. It's basically saying, like, what do you need to do to feel safe in this world, and if it's religion, then go for it. If it's not religion, then that's fine too. It's just a wonderful little show that made me feel more than just about anything on TV. I think I cried about 5 times in the final episode. It's just a wonderful show that deserves to be seen by more people, and I know it won't, but this is my chance to kind of like recommend it to the world.
Yeah, well, that's what we're here for, to right wrongs with your help. So let's move on to the one that I'm very surprised made your list. Stranger Things. This was a massive phenomenon last year. I feel every single person I know watched it and adored it. And much like another thing that you didn't nominate, you were one of the people I knew who were like, I mean, it's fine, but... So it's ended up here nonetheless. So let's talk about Stranger Things. I do know what this is about, but why don't you, for people who haven't seen it, those losers who haven't seen Stranger Things, tell me what it's about.
Stranger Things is kind of Netflix's love letter to the work of Stephen King and Steven Spielberg of the kind of 1980s, early 1990s. Yeah. It's about a group of kind of kids in the 1980s who end up getting involved in this supernatural horror type event that's also science fiction-y, like... Yeah, it's everything you love about Spielberg movies from the 80s put into one 8-hour season of television.
So, I guess we've got to kind of address this. Like, it seemed to me while you were watching it that you were kind of down on it, and yet it's ended up here. So did it sort of stick the landing for you that it came back around? Have you just not seen enough stuff? What are we talking here?
I think it's probably the tightest of Netflix's dramas that are kind of going for that kind of just a long movie style thing, which is obviously benefited from it only being 8 hours long, but it's a tighter season than anything that Marvel Netflix put out. It's not got that kind of episode structure that Orange is the New Black kind of that helps it along in terms of it feeling more episodic. I think the show are fantastic. The score is superb. The only thing I can level against it is that it feels kind of light and substantial, but that doesn't take away from how fun and just a pervading sense of tone and style, and so much about it works. It does what it needs to do, and the fact that it doesn't do more than that shouldn't be held against it.
Yeah, for sure. I loved the performances given by the show is like, you know, championing these kids are like, and they're charming as hell. Like Eleven is revelation, Dustin is amazing, but the performances by all the adult supporting cast I thought were fantastic. Winona Ryder particularly, although
she didn't get a nomination.
No.
Millie Bobby Brown did as 11.
Yeah, obviously.
As did everyone's favourite David Harbour as Jim Hopper.
Yeah, that was... I liked him. I thought he was pretty good. After seeing him pop up like here and there and everything over the years. Seeing him actually get this role. Really good. I'm very intrigued by where they're going to go with it next. I feel it's inevitably going to be worse next time round, but we'll see. I
do think... it's one of those things where I think season 1 was such a lightning in the bottle kind of moment for them that season 2 is going to have to do a lot of work, but I do think that they probably have some idea of what they want to do. I'm just hoping they kind of don't get bogged down by kind of, we're the fan favourite, let's do more of what we did in season 1.
Yeah. They've got to film as much as they can before those kids stop being cute as well. I think, hasn't Dustin's voice already broken or something? Or didn't they have to do some ADR on it because he was... I don't know, but... I feel there's a shelf life on those kids being cute.
There is one thing that I do want to say is, if this show spends more than half an episode on what happened to Barb in season 2, then they're just giving into meme culture.
I don't get that. I don't get the attachment to Barb. I guess just because she's the only one that calls anyone on bullshit in the show or something, or that they just completely left the dangling thread. I guess
it's just. I mean, the fact that she got an Emmy nomination for Best Guest Actress,
I know,
blows my mind.
I know.
Like. Of all television, you are saying that she gave one of the 5 best guest actress performances on TV for her scene where she sat on the edge of a diving board and got eaten by a monster.
Maybe. Who knows? Yeah, I mean, I haven't even seen enough shows to make this call, and I know that's wrong. So, right.
Also, looking at it now, I have found out that Andrew Stanton of Pixar fame is directing 2 episodes of season 2, which has me very intrigued.
Yeah, definitely. So, that's your whole ballot.
That's my whole ballot.
For drama, you left off The Americans, The Crown, This Is Us, and Westworld. Now... I fucking love Westworld. I was in it every single episode, hooked. What's going to happen next? Oh my god, did you see this? This moment, that moment. And I was texting you as it was airing. The rare example of a show we were both currently watching. It's like this and Game of Thrones, I think, for us every year, and that's it.
And Vice Principals.
And Vice Principals. What a trio, the heavy hitters. What was it about Westworld where you're just like, nah?
Westworld was a show filled with fantastic visual sense of itself, some fantastic performances in particular from Thandie Newton as Maeve, who deserves every inch of the nomination that she's gotten for supporting actress. My issue with the show comes almost entirely from a writing point of view of the kind of bullshit J.J. Abrams mystery box philosophy of we have to hide stuff from the audience. And a lot of shows recently have kind of gone for that thing where we are building up to a twist, and we live in a world in which the internet hive mind is going to figure out that twist in about 2 seconds.
Yeah.
So unless you do something more than that twist, like Mr. Robot season 1 did something more than its twist, and that helped elevate the season. Westworld, in that final episode, I think they spent 20 minutes devoted to kind of detailing what the twist is, and the entire time I was sat there going like, I know this.
Yeah. I mean, from episode 2, I think people had that figured out based on a logo treatment and stuff like that.
It's just a bad idea to think that your audience is not intelligent enough, and the only way to do it is to either treat your audience as intelligent enough to get it, and then you don't spend much time on it, or you do something more than that twist. And I think I said to you during the finale, after that twist has happened, the show became so much more alive and fun, because that was when they were running through the kind of the facility and kind of shooting stuff and just being gleeful, and it was like, oh, this is a show that I desperately want to watch every single week, is this show in which Maeve has a gun and she's running through killing people,
and Tessa Thompson is here more, and
yeah, exactly, and Teddy's still dying every single week.
Don't. Oh man, I see what you're saying. Literally every reveal, I think I saw somewhere on the internet weeks before it happened. The stuff with Wyatt, the big reveal, the stuff with Bernard, all of it. I think I saw spelled out, and it all came to fruition. I don't think there were many surprises. The Bernard moment I thought was very well done.
I mean, I think it did well in certain moments, but I do think it spent too much time on writing these kind of plot things and not enough time on characters. Like again, like my favorite, Maeve was my favorite part of the season, and she's the one who literally kind of got character stuff.
Yeah.
Like it was like every single episode was her reacting to something, as opposed to like the Jimmy Simpson and the and the Evan Rachel Wood stuff, which is basically here is a plot event happening. They are just going along with it, and they're not really developing as characters and stuff like that.
And they're like scared to give them character development because it's like tied in with the plot points of the show. So yeah, they've got a limited space to play in, I guess.
But again, I mean, it's a lot of fun. It is fun when it tries to be. Anthony Hopkins chewing scenery is always great. Probably doesn't deserve a lead actor nomination for what he did on the show.
No,
but again, Anthony Hopkins doing his Anthony Hopkins is just always fun.
Yeah, I guess I like shows that are these huge cultural events like this. Like it filled the Game of Thrones hole, even though it only aired like. Didn't it like come on like the week after Game of Thrones finished or something? I don't know, but
I think there was a couple of weeks behind it, or if it did air, it was kind of they did a sneak preview of it after Game of Thrones finale.
Yeah,
but look, it started in October, so I think there was a bit of time between the two.
That sounds familiar, but like that's what I liked about Lost. That's what I like about Game of Thrones. That's what I liked about Westworld. Even when some of these shows, like Lost is, I know, another big one for you. Even when these shows had their sort of very problematic or sometimes outright bad moments, just the sort of cultural zeitgeist thing of it. I like being involved in things like that, and I guess Stranger Things sort of was that as well. So, yeah.
I mean, look, if you look at the kind of what actually got nominated, so much of them are kind of cultural zeitgeisty shows. Handmaid's Tale's cultural zeitgeist, Stranger Things is, Westworld is, This Is Us is. The only one on there of the kind of new nominees that isn't kind of permeating culture and kind of things, something that people are talking about, was The Crown. And The Crown is so intrinsically Emmy bait that it's obvious why it's on the list. It's a period drama featuring decorated British and American thespians doing their darndest. It's basically taken the Downton Abbey spot on the list.
It's Downton Abbey on Netflix, basically.
Yeah. Wow. But well done in the same way that season 1 of Downton Abbey was, where each episode is a different event kind of thing, which is what Netflix should be doing more of.
Yeah, I went to my mother's house and taught her how to use Netflix, and we watched the first episode of The Crown. It seemed like well made, but not for me. But I could see why it would get nominations. Well, there we go. We have broken it all down in less than 8.5 hours. I'm very impressed with us both. That is what would have happened if Ben Phillips had an Emmy ballot, and some shows would have gotten on that deserve to be, I guess.
Yeah.
And you could have brought...
Do we want to do what my picks would have been for my nominations and what I think is going to win?
Oh, the actual winners, yeah, sorry, of course.
Yeah.
So, yeah, okay, so comedy, what do you think is going to win Best Comedy, and what would you...
It's basically between Atlanta and Veep this year. Veep is the reigning champion. It's won the last, I think, 2 years, possibly more. It's the one to beat, but I think if any show in this category is going to beat it, I think it's going to be Atlanta.
Okay.
Because Atlanta is, again, it's that big, new, shiny thing. It's Donald Glover's having a hell of a time at the moment between Spider-Man and Star Wars movies, and it was so pervasive when it was on that I think the only thing holding it back is Veep's got the entirety of the HBO block behind it.
Yeah.
to kind of push it to a win. And I do think there's a lot of love for Julia Louis-Dreyfus, who has won the Emmy for Best Lead Actress every year that Veep has been on the air.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure that show's good, but I don't know, man.
This season was a bit of a down season.
Okay. It would be such a triumphant moment if Atlanta won that.
Totally. I mean, Atlanta's the show. I mean, both from my nominations and from the actual nominations, Atlanta is the one that I want to see win the most, with Master of None being second from the actual nominations, because the second season of Master of None is a lovely little season of television.
Fair. Now, drama. What is your prediction out of Better Call Saul, Handmaid's Tale, The Leftovers, Legion, Orange is the New Black, Rectify, and that's your.
That's my Americans. Better Call Saul. No, not the Americans. God. Better Call Saul, The Crown, Handmaid's Tale, House of Cards, Stranger Things, This Is Us, and
Westworld. There you go.
There we go. This is a tough one, because I don't think it's going to be Better Call Saul or House of Cards, because I think they're grandfathered in, but there's no heat behind either of them. It's pretty much those 5 newbies. There is a compelling argument for all of them. It depends. Like, if the HBO block is mobilized, then Westworld takes it. If people want to go for a network show, then This Is Us, being the first network show nominated in 6 years, is going to take it. The Crown is exactly what Emmy voters like in a show, so that could take it. Handmaid's Tale is a political statement. Stranger Things is just joyous. It could be any of those, but I'm going to go with Westworld.
Yeah, that sounds like the one that I would just pick as a cynic.
I just think everything else is a vote splitter. The HBO block is so strong in these kind of things, and it kind of positions Game of Thrones to come back next year and win it again. Again, all 5 of those new shows could take it, because I think all 5 of those new shows are emblematic of kind of the future of TV drama in different ways. But Westworld feels like it's got the most kind of momentum behind it in terms of just HBO's complete dominance of the Emmys these last couple of years.
Yeah, for sure. So on your ballot, what would be the winner?
Leftovers.
Sorry, why did I ask? What would be the runner-up?
The runner-up, Orange. Orange is my favourite show of last year, and it would have been my favourite if The Leftovers had aired a little bit later, but The Leftovers is so omnipresent in my mind. I've actually barely watched any TV since The Leftovers ended.
It lives with you forever. It's ruined you. It has a piece of you.
I hate that I like the Emmys. I was thinking about this before, which is like it's the worst award show to like. Because at least with the Oscars, like, you have everyone knows about the Oscars happening, and at least if you watch the Tonys or the Grammys, you get people singing songs and doing music and stuff like that. With the Emmys, you just kind of sat there going to be disappointed for 2 hours.
Yeah. Whilst
your favourite late night TV star does a monologue once in a while.
Wow. There we are. Imagine a world where Donald Glover and like Millie Bobby Brown or whatever her name is are holding Emmys on.
It would be lovely. I think Millie Bobby Brown's probably my favourite in that category. I think she did such good work.
Well, there we go then. That is it. That's actually it now. So we'll have you back next year for sure for your 70th Emmy ballot. Maybe we'll do it before the nominations come out, so we get more of a.
I like that we spent a lot of time talking about stuff that wasn't nominated.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, yeah, that's what
we got to talk about. We got to talk about good TV.
Yeah, that's what Enter the Real World is about. We're about like shining light on things and no one listening to us while we do it. So Ben Phillips, thank you very, very much. Your voice may be heard again in the near future, as you and I have some podcast ideas kicking about. So hopefully people like this. Otherwise, that's going to be awkward for the foreseeable future. If people wanted to interact with you in the internet in a way that you consent to, how would they do that?
Is this so I pronounce my Twitter name without you having to mangle it?
No.
Nquoid is my Twitter handle. It is NQUOID. Come bother me on there.
There you go. He's on there a lot. I'm not anymore, but I'm parking that account forever. This has been great, so thank you for that. When you next hear me, now in theory, there's been a lot going on. Mike's been in Europe. We had to record a lot of stuff in advance, play with schedules. In theory, if we got all this right, last week you heard us talk about Spider-Man Homecoming.
That's so good.
Isn't it so good? Let's review Homecoming right now. No, so in theory, after this, unless Mike decides against it, I got him to agree on it, but it was a sort of tentative agreement. We will be doing one episode on American Gods next week, and then we will be launching into our next series, True Detective, which were series 1. Which will follow the format of Firefly, wherein we will cover 2 episodes for every podcast episode, which is probably going to be a bit more challenging because there's a lot more going on per episode there. But we will try. So there you go. That's what's coming up on The Real World. Entertherealworld.com. 2 E's. It's a pun. Mike likes those. Read our written content. He has reviewed a lot of movies while he's been in Europe because Ben and I live here. There's nothing to do. Like, all you can do is watch movies or 87 TV shows or whatever the fuck it was.
It was too much.
Too much. It was far too much. So yeah, thank you, Ben, and stay tuned to entertherealworld.com, soundcloud.com/Mike and Matt, and look out for the new stuff we've got coming in the future. Thank you, Ben.
Thank you for having me.
Very well.
8 days a year,